So, my dear ones, as we continue in October now, welcome into the sanctuary. And for all of you looking in, welcome too. You're as much part of our community as all of us here in physicality. And I'm knowing too that whatever it is we're here today to receive, we're going to receive it, whatever that might be, and it'll be different for us all. So all we have to do for that is to create an open receptivity to it, be listening and say yes to it. So the topic of the month again continues as this sense of unified beingness, harmony, oneness, and the challenge to us to settle ourselves more fully and deeply into the awareness that that's why we're here. To wake up and understand that indeed life is everything you and I would want it to be, think it to be, and feel it to be, and allow it to be. Because of the power that indwells us, that cosmic, infinite power that indwells us. That is one thing, just one thing. Now, Ernest Holmes says in the Principles of Science of Mind and Spirit that we believe in God, infinite, living spirit. Infinite, living spirit. And we believe that this infinite living spirit manifests itself in all of its creation. And that this one infinite being, life, force, presence, energy, infinite intelligence, whatever it is, presence, manifests itself in creation as the body of itself, as the material form of itself, aspect of itself. And it's all one thing. And the body of creation happens, he says, because of the indwelling inner self-knowingness of the one God, the one infinite being. Self-contemplation, in other words, creates form. And as it is in spirit, so it is with you and with me. Self-contemplation creates form in the form of experiences and the kind of life you and I are living. And he goes on to remind us that there is such a thing as there's a personal consciousness and there's a collective consciousness. And you and I are always feeding the collective consciousness. And through the collective consciousness, life appears as it is on this planet. That the collective consciousness is what designs our experiences on this plane. Wow. So, we can look out and see what we like and what we don't like on this plane, and we think, oh, it's the sum total of all of our collective consciousness. I have a personal consciousness. So what am I going to choose to think into this collective consciousness? Because whatever I'm thinking into it is creating all the experiences that we are all having. So I'm charged as a result of that to think the finest thoughts that I can think, to have the finest feelings that I can feel, to be in whatever I'm in, active in the finest possible way I can. So that what I'm pouring into the collective consciousness is raising the energy of this planet and is unifying it. Isn't that powerful? That is so awesome. This idea of understanding how my personal consciousness affects the cosmic consciousness, so to speak, of life and living. And it's incredible the way evolution works. Now, I don't know why. I don't think anybody knows why. That our evolutionary process is the way it is. It just is. This is how it is. This is how life evolves. Through self-contemplation. through imagination, through thinking, through ideation, through conviction. That's how life happens. It's formed out of this cosmic, infinite, intelligent energy that's in you, that's in me, that's in everything and in everyone. And for unity to occur, I must understand personal and collective consciousness and how they are so interconnected. So for unity to be realized, there has to be connection. And we are told that if you and I want to be more than we are experiencing ourselves to be, we have to get connected to everything and everyone. We need to be connected to our own self. We need to be connected to all of life in the form of not just human life, but non-human life. And of course, the source of all of this life, infinite intelligence itself. And that requires some work, does it not? So, in this process, all you and I have to do before getting overwhelmed is understand the only place I can do this is starting with myself and with me. And it's not as impossible as it might seem. It's possible, very possible. So I start with myself. I start looking at how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, how I'm doing, how I'm showing up in the world, who I am. What is exactly that? What is it that I am in this world? How am I in this world? And what is my influence in this world? Because we are all influencers, one way or another. All of us are influencers. So the beauty and the grace of it all is to take ourselves in hand and for once and for all, get out of our own way, because we are told that the way to unity is through transcending the ego. Well, like, that's a piece of cake. Transcending the ego, understanding personal and collective consciousness, and supporting the best in all of that, and then understand that we are eternal and that we transcend time and space. Now, these are all amazing words and concepts and so on, but what do they mean to you and to me? I transcend time and space. When we're trying to pay a bill or make life happen, make life work, when we're caught up in the busyment of the embodiment, when we're so busy getting and spending, gathering and collecting and moving up the ladder, working our way up the ladder and all of that stuff. Oh, we're so funny. Honest to Pete, if we really knew way back when we come in what we get to know later on and what we will know too later than this, our whole life would be so different. We would live our lives in such a very different way. Our focus would not be on the exterior and the material all of the time, or most of the time. We would be so focused on the interior aspect of our being. We would know, like Rumi, that we were not the drop in the ocean. We were the very ocean in the drop. We would know that. And we'd be like him, drunk with joy, laughing, singing, and dancing all around the place. Because we would know who and what we were and are. And we would know what everybody else is, because here's the thing. If I have to learn how to understand other people, the best, and I do, and the best way to do that is to understand myself, and God knows that's enough of a job, a handful. I don't know about you, but it takes me all that I have to understand myself at times. And that's all I have to do, is to focus here, focus here. I love this piece, which I picked up in the book of the month that we were asked to read, and I want to get it really right because it's perfect. It's Eckhart Tolle, and it's from The Principle of Oneness by Russell Anthony Gibbs. A small little thin book full of juicy, juicy, juicy pieces of wisdom. Here's what he says. The most common ego identifications have to do with possessions, the work you do, social status and recognition, knowledge and education, physical appearance, special abilities, relationships, personal and family histories, belief systems, and often nationalistic, racial, religious, and other collective identifications. None of these is you. Now, this is why we're here. We want to know beyond all of those things with regard to who we are, because he says none of these are you. None of them are you. I think it was Nietzsche that said something to the effect that of all the mines of treasures that we mine, the one that we will last mine or dig up with the greatest of all treasures is ourselves. What is it about ourselves that we put ourselves off from doing this? What is it we don't want to see? What is it we're not? I mean, if you glance to the side a little bit, you see things differently. Sometimes when you glance to the side, you see things and you wonder if you're seeing them at all. We can't even glance in ourselves for a tiny moment, to stay there sufficiently, to glean the treasure, to find the inner kingdom wherein all the treasures are, as we were told, because the kingdom is within, the treasure is within, the pearl of great price is within. And we've got to do what it takes in order to mine it, to get it, to receive it. Why are we not doing this? Because this is why we have such a sense of disunity, disharmony at times. Now, I don't believe for a minute that we're all that separate that people would have us believe. I don't believe that for a minute, because it's impossible to be that way. We have a root system. If you've ever gone into a sage field, a large sage field, you see all these individual sage bushes. Sometimes they're in rows and sometimes they're all over the place. And I was with a person in New Mexico and he said to me, you know what, who'd ever think that this is all one root system? These are all connected with one root system, one root system, one root system. So are you, so am I, to everything and everyone. I say it regularly, we are everything and everyone is me. I'm everything and everyone is me. Well, how do you get that comprehension absorbed sufficiently that I can behave myself as though this were so? So in other words, every mirror I look into, every person I look into, everything I look at is a reflection somewhere or another of me. Why? Because I am part of, and yet all of, omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence. This is what ancient wisdom right up until now has been telling us. This is what it means to say that the macro is contained within the micro. Well, how can that be? And yet it is. Now, what I think our greatest challenge is that we cannot face into the magnitude of what we truly are. We cannot face into such brightness and light as that. Because we don't believe it. We don't believe it because we're over-identified with our human condition. We're over-identified with our faults and failings and our weaknesses. We're over-identified with all the labels that everybody has slapped on to us over the years, and we ourselves have too. We're over-identified with the egoic state of being, the human state of being. And we cannot see the wood for the trees. That's why. But today we're asked to come higher, friend. We're asked to, for once, sit back, relax, get quiet, and just contemplate for a moment that I could be this great magnitude that I'm told I am from all the seers of all the ages, of all the cultures. that I am the indwelling place of infinite being itself, that there's an infinite intelligence not only available to me, but it runs through me, and that life is all about fusion and energy and vibration. That's what Tesla said way back in the 1930s. So what is it going to be? How long are we going to sit in our smallness and settle for less and decide limitation is just part and part of life and living? And maybe, just maybe, I have enough. I am enough. Do you really and truly want more of yourself than you're experiencing now? I didn't say more stuff and things. I said, do you really want more of yourself showing up by means of you? I believe you do. I believe I do. I believe that's why we're here. We're not that many. We're very few, actually, because this particular teaching is a teaching for black belters in spirituality. It's a teaching that takes responsibility for your life and it puts it squarely on your shoulders and tells you there's no one to blame for how you are and who you are. There never was and there never will be. You are awesomely powerful and you are capable of being in charge and control of your life, and your life can be anything you want your life to be. Get a grip. Get a grip. Look at yourself in the mirror and see beyond the appearance in that mirror and be awed by the magnitude of what you are in essence and are in truth. Omniscience, energy, vibration, fusion with the one. And it's a whole thing, and it's a complete thing, and it's a full thing. And it's a thing that expands and expands and expands and expands, and we are told that love is the way. And what is love? It's givingness. Givingness is what love is. Make no mistake about it. That's what love is. It's pouring out. Pouring out what? All of this cosmic energy that surges within you in a way that fuses, unites, expands, uplifts, advances in ways that are good and very good. That's who you are. That's what you are. So you have to ask yourself when you look in the mirror seriously next, am I willing to stay in my smallness and my limitations yet again? Or is there something more for me to experience? Is there something more for me to express? Only you can answer that question. But we human beings love to play around in the field of smallness. And we're used to settling for, and we're used to putting up with, and we're used to going along with. Here's what Albert Einstein says: the true value of a human being can be found in the degree to which he has attained liberation from the self, the small self. As long as you and I are willing to play small, as long as you and I are willing to embrace our limitations, as long as you and I think we can't do it, think this is for somebody else, I'm not as advanced as somebody else is. If only they knew all my woes and wails and difficulties and limitations. Oh, baloney. It's time to get over all of that stuff. Everybody is thinking the same way as you're thinking, and everybody has their challenges and their limitations and so on. Because we, as a consciousness, collectively has decided that this is okay. Well, it's not okay, is it? I'll ask you the question again, and it can be rhetorical. Do you really and truly want to know who you are? Yes. And are you ready to do what it takes to unleash what's already here? That power, that potency, that wholeness, that fullness. Are you willing to do what it takes? Because it takes something. You give and you get. We put out and it comes in, it comes back. And what you have to give is time and energy and care of yourself. And you have to be willing to be still and to be quiet. Oh, thank you, my dear. The doctor's in the house. Thank you, Dr. Michelle. Oh, it's very good. It's gin. Don't be confused here. It's the water. It's what we call in Ireland Adam's Ale. Water is called Adam's Ale in Ireland. It's my drink of choice. So anyway, my dear ones, honest to Pete, let's not this moment get away from us now. I mean, it has been revealed to you. You do know this is nothing new. And even if you're hearing this for the first time, inside of you, you've always known this to be so, that there's this great magnitudinal thing wants to come out of you and soar. We were not born to stay earthbound. We were born with the invisible wings to soar. And our frustration comes from the fact that we don't do that. We're not meant to be caterpillars forever, you know. I mean, we have to do better than that. We cannot be like the caterpillar, and I love that because I love reminding us all, walking along the two caterpillars looking at each other saying, when they see a butterfly, you'll never get me up there in one of those things. And that's how we are. We can't identify. We cannot identify with the reality of our being, which is so much more than anything you could be experiencing, no matter how good your life is. There's more. There's always more. Just like the marketers on the television say, wait, there's more. Spirit is always saying, stop waiting, there's more. See? So you have charge of your own life, you're in control of your own life. And nobody else has that power over you unless you give it to them. So now, right where you are, exactly as you are, you make up your mind, this is a new day. This is real, this is happening, and I'm going to happen with it. I'm going with the flow of my life. I'm going to surrender all of the rubbish and the nonsense, because that's the only thing you ever have to surrender. You never have to surrender anything, only all your negatives, that's all, and mine too. Well, that's enough to have to surrender. And so work at it bit by bit by bit by bit and make it doable. Set yourself up for success and don't say, I'm going to change overnight. You're not. Just hone in on one particular characteristic of yourself and work that through, and then choose another and another and another. And it'll get easier and the process will get quicker as we go along. Because God by means of you is on the move. Oh my gosh, is God by means of you on the move? Let God be God by means of you on the move, and so it is.